Hi, welcome back to Plan9Crunch. I'm Joe Gibson, and every week we read from a cult genre novel or something to that effect. Today, I would like to read out of the original novels for Godzilla and Godzilla Raids Again by Shigeru Kageyama, translated by Jeffrey Engels. We've read from this before, and one thing I like to do when I repeat a book is read the respective death pages for the characters. Just a fun little thing. The thing about some of these deaths is that they have multiple pages, so I have to find a good starting point. The stopping point's obvious, like when they die or when the book ends, in many such cases. We shall start here. Page 108. The entire crew felt as if their hearts were standing still. Step by step, Godzilla approached. Serizawa raised his right hand. Shinkichi pulled ferociously on the lifeline. With a whoosh, he floated upward. Serizawa, however, stayed in position with the destroyer. Godzilla got even closer. As he rose to the surface, Shinkichi screamed inside his helmet, "Dr. Serizawa! Dr. Serizawa!" But Serizawa was determined. With a swift movement, whoosh, Godzilla closed in. It was now or never. Click. Serizawa released the oxygen destroyer's safety catch. Water began to rush into the device. The round cannonball-sized capsule slowly began to open, and bubbles started rising from the destroyer. Thrusting it toward Godzilla, Serizawa pulled himself back into the shade of the rocks. Glub, 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 glub. Godzilla moved forward into the cloud of rapidly churning bubbles. No sooner had his entire body entered the cloud of bubbles than whoosh. Godzilla did a somersault and turned around. Serizawa watched while hiding against a boulder. Quietly, he pulled out a jackknife from where he'd hidden it near his hip. Back on board, Shinkichi had removed his helmet. As he watched the bubbles rise into the surface grow more intense, he grabbed the radio transceiver and shouted over and over, "Dr. Serizawa, Dr. Serizawa!" Emiko and her father watched with sad faces. On the seabed, Godzilla was clawing furiously at the underwater outcroppings. He was writhing in agony. Driven to painful desperation, he struggled to make it to the surface of the water. As he watched, Serizawa whispered to himself, "Shinkichi, I wish you a happy life. Take good care of Emiko. Sayonara, sayonara." And with that whoosh, he cut the breathing tubes and the lifeline with his knife. In the maelstrom of bubbles rising from the destroyer, Godzilla writhed in distress. Each time he started to topple over, he managed somehow to get up again. The fiercely bubbling water formed a swell like a small mountain, pushing the surface of the water upward, and the seagull with it. Suddenly, the professor, who had been hauling in the lifeline that Ogata was guiding, pulled up the end of the cord. There was no longer any tension in it. He began shouting at the top of his lungs, "Serizawa, Serizawa!" There was deep sadness in his voice. The slack lifeline was dead. It felt strange and unsettling. As they pulled it up, the end showed it had been cleanly severed with a sharp knife. Still holding the radio transceiver, Shinkichi stood there in a daze. "Dr. Serizawa, Dr. Serizawa, I should have helped. Dr. Serizawa." Emiko grabbed onto him. She was already in tears. Then, right before everyone's eyes splashed, Godzilla's anguish-filled face appeared at the surface, spraying everyone. Summoning up what remained of his last strength, he was trying to attack the seagull. "Ah!" Emiko let out a sharp shriek. Shinkichi grabbed her and held her tight. Everyone gasped and threw themselves down, face first on the deck. Godzilla writhed around, making some big movements with the last of his strength, and splash. He collapsed back into the sea, sending up a waterfall's worth of spray. His form started to sink. Glug, 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 glug. Godzilla's dead body sank quietly into the still bubbling water. For some time, his form lay on its side between the seabed boulders. But then it dissolved before everyone's eyes. Professor Yamane started hard at the surface of the water. There were tears running down his face. The Japanese people had succeeded in wiping Godzilla, that hateful monster, from the face of the earth. And it proceeds into the denouement of the movie from there. You'll notice Ogata's in the book, but he's not the one going down with Serizawa. Yeah, in the book here, Shinkichi is the romantic love interest to Emiko. It takes out a good deal of the layered, complex interpersonal relationships that help to make the original movie stand out from the 1950s sci-fi fare. I like the prose and the way this is described. The onomatopoeia is also very fun to read aloud. But ultimately, this book, well, I'm very grateful to have it, is not quite as good as the movie that it was based on. However, the Godzilla Raids Again segment is actually better because that's not really important. Raising is a flawed movie. The prose elevates that. I also want to, just while we're here, talk about Monsterverse Declassified. I like to talk about the Monsterverse, but I don't want to dedicate its own video to this. So, the latest graphic novel from Legendary Pictures Monsterverse, specifically this is Legendary Comics. It has different authors for the different segments because it's a Monsterverse Declassified, so it has dossiers on 4 different monsters. Greg Keyes returns to write Behemoth's section that expands on Behemoth's role in Keyes' earlier work, Godzilla Dominion, that we talked about. Links maybe in the description. It shows him as the protector to people, but also has a conflict with some other people. Interesting environmental themes in that one. Then Tiamat is the snake that Godzilla kills in GXK. This one gives some backstory proving that she was always kind of a menace to society, and also hinting that she might somehow be alive in some way. At least she hasn't disintegrated yet, according to the Monarch people studying her. It also introduces that they have like 237 Hollow Earth bases by that point. Let's see if that's correct. It's towards the end of the story when we meet Jade Jorgensen. Yeah, Monarch Outpost 237. In GXK, it showed that they restarted the numbering of the outposts in Hollow Earth, so Outpost 1 was the thing. They've made 237 between, well, 200, no, yeah, because they had to rebuild Outpost 1. They've made 237 since the end of that movie and whenever this takes place. In that time, Tiamat's body's not decomposed at all, so cool. Abaddon is more like an episode of the Unexplained or something to that effect, with the portrayal of this mystery about all these spiders. Also, its artwork is the most horrific. And Abaddon is an interesting monster that is the king of all the spiders, the lord or god of all the spiders, and it might come back one day. We don't know much about it. Then we have Doug. Titanus Doug, who is the meme lizard, as I like to call him, because he caught on in the memes. They named him Doug, and now he has a personality of being a very distractible puppy dog that gets in a fight with a wart dog, and his inattentiveness saves his life at the end. In a battle on a volcano, he's fighting with a wart dog and gets distracted by a dragonfly. So, quite fun. I enjoyed it. Is it worth $20? I'll let you decide. This is the better, more important book, clearly, than Monsterverse Declassified, but still, it's good to appreciate both, and I thought I'd combine the videos this time. Anyway, thank you for watching. This is our YouTube page. Subscribe if you can. We won't force you to. And we have a TikTok page, as well as Plan9Crunch podcast and blog as our Facebook page, and we have a traditional blog, Plan9Crunch.com. Thank you all for watching, and that's a wrap.